Good morning and welcome to First Unitarian Universalist Church of Rochester on this beautiful Sunday morning. This is a church of open minds and loving hearts, celebrating many sources of wisdom and many spiritual paths. Your faith, your doubts, your identity are welcome here. A special welcome to visitors, newcomers, and those who are joining us online. Turn around and wave to those in the camera in the back. We are so glad that you are all here. There's a preschool playroom open for young ones and groups activities for kids following the Time for All Ages. And after service, please join us for refreshments in the Commons. You may have noticed that the chancel here looks a little bit different. There is a play going on this afternoon, all weekend, called Anne, and based on Ann Richards, and Laurie Helmers is doing this is a one-act performance, and evidently it is a wonderful activity that there's still one chance to come this afternoon, so you can come and see how things are transformed after that. On Wednesday nights, we have Tupper Supper and programs, and this Wednesday's forum will focus on the new proposal for Article 2 of our Unitarian Universalist bylaws, which includes new language regarding our principles and sources. 8 members from our congregation will reflect on the changes, and then there will be time for some small group discussion. Supper is at 5:30, and the forum will begin a little bit earlier than usual at 6 o'clock with childcare provided. All are welcome. Next Sunday, after each service, you're invited to attend a meeting presented by our Building Our Future Beyond Ourselves committee about our new building. It'll show the design updates and next steps. So whether you attend the 9 or 11 o'clock service, you'll have a chance to talk with our wonderful team, ask questions, and stay in the loop about our future together. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the next version of this design looks like. Most Sundays, our entire offertory collection goes out the door of the church to support work for a more just and loving world. And today our offering goes to support our monthly justice partner, the Med City Refuge, which is an organization that supports those who come to Rochester for gender-affirming care. You can give as the plates pass or online anytime. And today we are honored to have Reverend Victoria Safford lead us in worship. And we are so grateful to have you here to share your wisdom and good words. So thank you. In a moment, our opening hymn will call us back. But before we sing, I invite you to rise in body or spirit and greet those around you. And just as clue, the words and tune for the hymn will be in the bulletin.
Good morning.
With all the land discloses. For the people hear us singing, bread and roses, bread and roses. As we come marching, marching, we battle to for men, for they are women's children, and we mother them again. Our lives shall not be sweated from birth until life closes. Hearts starve as well as bodies. Give us bread, but give us roses. As we come marching, marching, unnumbered women dead, go crying through our singing their ancient songs of red. Small art and love and beauty, their drudging spirits knew. Yes, it is bread we fight for, but we fight for roses too. As we come marching, marching, we heed the greater call. The rising of the women means the rising of us all. No more the dredge and idler, and toil and weary poses, but a sharing of life's glories, bread and roses, bread and roses.
Good morning. These words for chalice lighting come from Mary Oliver. Hello, sun in my face. Hello, you who made the morning and spread it over the fields and into the faces of the tulips and the nodding morning glories and into the windows of even the miserable and the crotchety. Best preacher that ever was, dear star, that just happens to be where you are in the universe, to keep us from ever darkness, to ease us with warm touching, to hold us in the great hands of light. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Watch now how we start the day in happiness, in kindness. Watch how we start in kindness.
And we will now collect the offering.
I'd like to invite the children forward, or anybody who's feeling particularly young at heart today. What do you think I have today? I have my, oh, no peeking. So, a couple weeks ago, we talked about this big word when we went downstairs. And I don't suppose anybody remembers what this big word was. I mean, that was 2 weeks ago. I barely remember 2 weeks ago. So, I'm going to show you one thing, and I'm going to ask you if you recognize this. Does anybody recognize this? Yes. What is it? Yes, this hangs in our rooms by our, it's not one of our principals, but you're right, it hangs by all of our principals. This is actually what we consider our Unitarian Universalist sources. And these are in what I like to call kid speak. Because this word that I was talking about this month is called pluralism. Does anybody remember me talking about that before? What does it mean when something is plural? We talked about this. A lot, or more than one, or you put an S on the end of the word, right? That's kind of what we talk about when we talk about plural. So if you notice, there are lots of different things on our list of sources. And there are some religions that only use one thing as their source. Can anybody think of one of those things that people might only, some religions that might only use one thing? Like a few weeks ago, we talked about Jesus and we talked about the Bible, right? There's some religions that use the Quran. There's some religions that use the self. There's some that use all sorts of writing. But that's one thing that pluralism means in our religion is there isn't just one thing. It means we're always learning and always growing. So that is part of the reason why we call ourselves a living tradition. Because what happens as you live and get older? What? What happens as we get older? We do die, but like there's a lot of stuff usually that happens like between that now and then. But what do we do? You're gonna be, yeah, I know, we've talked about that. But you talked about traditions, right? Is that one thing you said? And so there's traditions, but also we learn. Do you know more or less than you did last year? More. Now, is there anyone out here who has learned everything there is to know? Who has answers to everything? There's no hands up, just so you know. Because part of the living tradition and part of being a living human and part of being part of this religion is that we're always learning and always growing. And one of those, open our minds to the mystery and wonder of the universe. So does that mean we have all the answers? No, we have to be open to not knowing. Be guided by truth and reason and science. Does that mean that we have all the answers right now? No. But does that mean that we might find out new answers or different answers? Yeah, because that's what science is kind of about, is testing things and trying things out and seeing what happens. And we don't have one thing we follow, we have multiple things we follow, and we can take inspiration from all sorts of things. So some people might take inspiration from the Bible, and some people might take inspiration from Mary Oliver. That was who our chalice lighting words were from this morning. Some people may take inspiration from multiple religions that have very different ideas about what happened. But that is what pluralism is all about. And that's what makes us all very unique. And one of my favorite sayings is when we don't know what we don't know. So then when we learn new things, That makes us better people because we're learning new and growing and becoming smarter and wiser. And will you ever know everything there is to know? No. And may you always keep learning and growing. All of you out there too. Now we're going to go down and do some learning and growing together. Austin will play the children's benediction. It is in the back inside cover of your hymnal, even in the teal ones now.
Thanks, Austin. Good morning. It is good to be with you. I invite you to settle in here as we create a place of communal caring and connection. It's our time to pause amidst the busyness of our lives, to slow down enough to consider the beauty that is here all around us, and to open a space for listening and love. Here, we honor all who support us in this caring, loving, and all-inclusive ministry. On this Mother's Day, we celebrate all who nurture us in so many ways. The flowers this morning are shared in memory of Debbie Neville's mother and Mariah Mims' grandmother, Verna Kraft, who died at the age of 96 in January. We send gratitude to Mary Jane McCarty and Kay Eberman serving as our caring coordinators, arranging care for our members and friends in need. The members of our caring committee are wonderful examples of our compassionate community, holding us up as we go through challenging and happy times. And life can be challenging. We could all use some extra support with what life throws at us. And if you are experiencing those challenges in your life, we encourage you to reach out for support and help. If you need additional care or personal pastoral care, please reach out to Reverend Ruth or myself with that request. In this community, we share pieces of our lives with one another. We do this because all people here have value. Each person's experience matters. We lift up those who are experiencing sadness, illness, or loneliness. May the strength and love in our congregation help guide you. And we revel in those who are experiencing joys in their lives. May their happiness lift us all, and may their joy filter into all around them. We hold Deb Mowry in our hearts this morning. Deb's father, Roscoe Mart, age 94, of Eddyville, Iowa, passed away on May 8th. He had declining health for the last year. Services will be held this week, and we send love to the family and all who knew Roscoe. And Marty Alamon would like to thank everyone who wished her well through cards of support, phone calls, and thoughts of healing energy over the past several weeks after her double knee replacement. I said she was a superhero after that. She's on the mend and getting around slowly but surely, and we wish her continued healing. Cards of support and well wishes are welcome for all. The cards of support list that is compiled weekly contains several members and friends of the church who are experiencing those challenging or happy times, and is posted in the entryway of the church as well as in a link through your e-news. We provide cards and postage and welcome you to leave the cards in the basket in the hallway. We encourage you to spread well wishes that way. Here, our service to each other, to the world, and to our faith is our focus. Let us carry that out into the wider world. May the faith in the spirit of life, love for the community of earth, and love for the light in each other be ours now and in all the days to come.
Friends, on this bright morning, I invite you to breathe deep the breath of life, the spirit of life, and know that by breath you are bound to all that lives and to each other. We hold in our hearts today those who mourn or who are lonely, those who live with addiction or depression or other mental illness. In these times, we hold the people of Palestine, terrified children, bereaved parents, and those facing now not only bombs, but the catastrophe of starvation. We hold the people of Israel in their trauma and their losses. And we remember, holding these and other peoples everywhere, that every human being is a universe entire. So let's take one more breath. This is a prayer for Mother's Day. To all the women living and dead who have chosen in their freedom to open their bodies, open their hearts, open the days and nights of their lives to the mothering of children, we say in humility and wonder, may you be blessed. To all the women who had no choice because they had no freedom and mothered children anyway, we say in humility and wonder, may you be blessed. To all the women who've borne the anguish of infertility or miscarriage or the loss of a child by illness or accident or war, to all the women who released a child to adoption by force or by their will, to all the women separated from their children by prison or border guards, we say in humility and wonder, in sympathy and solidarity, may you be blessed. To all the women living and dead who've chosen in their freedom to have no children of their own, but choose instead to bless the world and mother it with other arts and other uses of their power, we say in humility and wonder, may you be blessed. Amen. Our hymn is Comfort Me, number 1002 in the Teal hymnal.
Dance with me,
The first reading is by Titsam Barakat, Stirrings. I thank the women who came before me, who, as they stirred sugar into tea and lemon into lentil soup, had stirrings of freedom in their chests. Some spoke of that, and some served this food silently. But all the longing conquered the long road, fed the ground, until it grew strong for me now to stand on it, stand my ground, to stand, to walk, and run my ground as a master of my spirit. The second reading is from Julia Ward Howe, Unitarian, from her speech in 1870 for mothers. Peace Day, the first Mother's Day. Arise then, women of this day. Arise, all women who have hearts, whether your baptism be of water or of tears. Say firmly, we will not have questions answered by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands will not come to us reeking with carnage for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We, the women of one country, will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure those. As men have often forsaken the plow and the anvil at the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left at home for a great and earnest day of counsel. Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them then solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means whereby the great human family can live in peace.
Friends, I'm so honored to be here with you again in Rochester and grateful to my friends and dear colleagues, Luke and Ruth, for inviting me. And I'm also so glad that Rose and Austin are the musicians this morning. You all are just beautiful. A few years ago, a friend gave me a gift. He'd grown up on the Mille Lacs Ojibwe Reservation north of the Twin Cities, and I asked him to help shape a ceremony for someone who was dying, a person who all their life, for various reasons, had frequently passed as white, but was in fact Native. The person was troubled in their spirit as they died. And Derek, my friend, is a chaplain. He's gentle and honest and compassionate and funny and direct. He brought deep solace to the dying person. He helped them prepare for their transition with easy conversation and hard conversation and ritual and music, and he made all kinds of space for questions and fear and regrets and confession and forgiveness. He invited the person to imagine the memorial we were going to hold outside on Native land up north. Once they'd passed away, he showed pictures of the place and described the water and the wild rice and the eagles nesting there. The dying person was Mohawk, not Ojibwe. They'd moved here from out east. But with Derek's help, they came home here. Their soul came home, and they died quietly. Derek seemed to me to be so masterful as a chaplain, so intuitively capable with somebody he had not met before. So I was really surprised when he told me that every evening through that time, a period of a couple weeks, he was speaking on the phone every night with his uncles and his aunties, and once or twice in person, he drove all the way up to Mille Lacs to consult with them, to get their advice, because he said, "I'm still young on my journey." He needed the wisdom of elders, his family and chosen family, to guide him in this work, even though he had years of experience and a master's of divinity and a whole life lived in prayer and study and service. He said, "I'm still young on my journey." And that was a gift that he gave me, that way of understanding my own work and life. I've held that phrase like this little seed to plant in my heart and see, if possible, what kind of humility and grace could ever take root in me. It's a beautiful, vulnerable strength, and it's so hopeful to think of yourself not as fully accomplished, not fully formed or fully informed, not an expert, but youthful on your path. At any age, still open, teachable, still standing in the need of prayer, as the old spiritual says, needing guidance from elders who are living and others who've gone on. The person Derek cared for was my brother, Mark. He was adopted like me as an infant, but from very different birth families. And when Derek met him the first time, he said, "Your sister hasn't told me much about you, but I know this. There are 2 Indians in this room, and they're both drunks. And one got lucky for no reason, was just blessed with good luck. And one got bad luck for no reason. And now, for a little while, we're just going to travel together." Derek was young on his journey. He was a chaplain in his early 30s then, and he is an old soul. This is Mother's Day, and I've always loved the practice in some traditions of wearing a carnation in honor of your mother, a red one if she's living, a white one if she's died. In some Black churches, this is a long-time custom, and I think sometimes if the Unitarian Universalist Church were one that gave out Mother's Day carnations, I would be covered in flowers, red and white, like a float in a parade. So many are the mentors, living and dead, women and men, who have guided me and inspired me and bequeathed to me some essential legacy, whether I was ready to recognize it or not. I would be covered in carnations, honoring all of the mothers, the fathers, and others who left no children of their own, some of them, but other gifts in deep as DNA in me. And you have your own teachers and mentors, the people who gave you these little clues along the way about how to be a person, how to be kind, how to be joyful and thankful and brave, even in the midst of anything. This is another way of thinking about the interdependent web, which binds us inextricably, not just to each other and all life in the present, horizontally, but also to the past and also to the future. All of us would be covered in flowers because we're all always young on this journey, so utterly indebted to those who came before. Mother's Day, as you know, is complicated. If you open up that Hallmark card and you squint to read the fine print there, you will find it is joyful for some and poignant for others and bittersweet for others still, and not in any way at all sweet for still others. It's good to remember beyond the flowers and cards that the day has two origin stories, actually three, all beautiful, all true. Anna Jarvis in 1858, calling for a women's work day to honor the invisible economy and networks of mutual aid built by rural women to support each other in the 19th century. Later, her daughter picked up the banner of Mother's Day, but it wasn't Mother's Work Day anymore. She worked with the president to make it a very sentimental, very personalized holiday. So the two Anna Jarvises, mother and daughter, two different ideas. And in the middle of them, Julia Ward Howe, Unitarian, who in 1870 led a massive demonstration through the streets of Boston protesting the nation's appetite right after the Civil War for new wars in other people's countries. It was Mother's Peace Day. Arise, she said. Together with these other hoop-skirted co-conspirators, she stepped out of the confines of convention and complicit domesticity and said to the people weary of war and weary of politics and profit and privilege, "Arise then, women of this day." And they rose, thousands strong that day. Mothers and others and many men, they rose and they marched and sang and lobbied and they wept with rage and hope. And they organized. And the war came anyway, as wars usually do. And then they rose again. We rise again and again because we are their children. They called it Mother's Peace Day, which makes sense because the work of parenting and the nurture of children, your own and everybody else's, is just like all the work we ever do for justice and peace. It is endless, thankless, no real guarantee of measurable success. And yet, because it's all about the ancestors and the descendants, because we understand ourselves in the present to be part of some much larger evolving story, we pour our strength and blood and breath into the day-to-day ways of being strong and brave and hopeful. The work of parenting, of teaching and hoping, that's all the work of peace and justice, because it's not just about specific love, but life's longing for itself. We love and care. Our love and care and presence are investments, down payments in the future, and we won't ever live to see it, but we believe in it. Sometimes against all the odds, we believe in it. We keep on keeping on. I had a friend who was already old. She was in her 90s when I knew her years ago. Juanita Nelson and her husband, Wally Nelson, had been part of the first waves of young Black people leading lunch counter sit-ins in the 1940s in the South. There were years when Juanita spent more time in jail than out of it, and she was a reporter herself, but one of her reporter colleagues asked her once, "It's one thing for you to do all this rabble-rousing because you don't have a family, you don't have kids, but what if you'd had children?" And she just smiled at him and she didn't miss a beat, and she said, "If I'd had children, I'd be fighting even harder, working even more. How could I not? Their lives would be at stake." Lucille Clifton, the great poet, looks at a photo of her grandchildren playing in the yard, and she speaks a silent prayer. Her poem is called Photograph. "My grandsons, spinning in their joy, round and round and round. Universe, keep them turning, turning black little blurs against the window of the world, for they are beautiful, and there is trouble coming, round and round and round." She was speaking to a particular Black terror in America, a prayer for all the children, mainly boys though, who may not grow up in joy and may not grow up at all. Universe, she said, keep them, hold them, guard them, protect them, for they are beautiful and there's trouble coming. When you look that way at children whom you cherish, or anybody's children, or anything in this world that's beautiful and true and fragile. When you look at the world that way with constant fear and love so fierce you have to pray about it, whether you believe in God or not, well, then you're looking on that thing with mothering eyes, whether you're a parent or not. You are inhabiting what the Buddha meant when he said, even as a mother watches over her child, so with boundless mind should we cherish all living beings. Ibtisam Barakat, Palestinian-American, gives thanks in the reading that Beth shared for the ones who came before her. The women stirring sugar into tea and lemon into lentil soup. Strong women, she says, with stirrings of freedom shimmering inside them. Growing up, she felt their power. It gave her ground to stand on, even though, as a Palestinian, there's not been in her lifetime any patch of ground or land or state to claim as home and call her own, and there may not ever be now. Still, she says there's something in that legacy of loved passed on like a recipe or a quilt, that inheritance of fierce tenderness and groundedness that makes her life beautiful. I've heard her speak, she says it. Makes you feel you belong in the world, even if the whole world says you don't. Politics and soul work, sacrament and public witness, faith and action. Where does one leave off and the other begin if we're talking about care for our children, or care for the earth, or care for the poor, or care for each other, or care for each other in this time of grave danger, when leaders often aren't leading and they say every day, your children don't matter. Your loved ones don't matter. Your elders don't matter. The most vulnerable are the most expendable. The land and water don't matter, and neither does science or justice or truth, and neither do you. What can you do in such a time but arise every day with your chosen community, bind the strands of your spirit back together, and say to yourself, say to your children, say to your mother and her memory, we're better than this. We are brighter than this. We always have been. We're more creative and compassionate and human and humane than this. And we deserve, because everybody deserves, bread and roses too. You remember who you come from. You remember who you are. Anna Jarvis, Julia Howe, they were practical dreamers. They were looking far forward to the future of women's work and power, the world's future, but they must also have been looking inward, looking backward, drawing from a much deeper well of inspiration, a deeper source of hope than their own bright ideas and opinions. Women before them, maybe their mothers, grandmothers, ancestors, maybe people whose names they never knew, deep in the shadows of shared history, had survived. They were evidence of that. They had survived at least through childbirth. Generation after generation survived everything, and somehow passed on this vision of dignity and equality and freedom, women's worth and human worth, passed it on in character and stories and legacies of struggle. Jarvis and Julia Ward Howe didn't just show up. They came from somewhere, from this infinitely long line of radical imagination which they chose to pick up and carry on. It's always a continuum, history, and we're on it, whether the history of a country or a society or a family. And we're all of us just these little dots on a timeline or a leaf on a tree, if you don't like linear images, maybe an acorn, maybe a seed, and our arms are just brimful of inheritance, and some of it, is unwelcome baggage, which we don't have to pass on, and some of it is just this luminous light that we didn't kindle and we dare not put out. And you know this here in this congregation, I know you do, where you are the Unitarian Universalist descendants of people like Eliza Tupper Wilkes and so many others, known and unknown, stretching back more than a century. We are young on this journey, but the road is old. Our work for the love of the world, raising children, raising hell, is unceasing and it's unglamorous most of the time, and it is holy, therefore. All this grubby hope that you bear in the bones of your soul. When Julia Ward Howe told the people in the street on that first Mother's Peace Day, "Arise," she was speaking to them as activists, but they didn't understand themselves as such particularly, as change agents, forces to be reckoned with, forces for good. She was speaking to them as parents and grandparents and uncles and aunts and weary domestics, a lot of them, laborers, servants, and people of means as well as people of no means at all, the lucky and the unlucky, as Derek said to my brother. People who deserved and had already more than earned their bread and their roses. Arise, she said. Get up, stand up. The day is calling you to struggle, and the day is calling you to joy in the struggle. Alison Luderman, a poet, says this: I think all the time about invisible work, about the young mother on welfare I interviewed years ago who said, "It is so hard. You bring him to the park, you run rings around yourself, keeping him safe, cut the hot dogs into tiny bite-sized pieces for dinner, and there's no one to say what a good job you're doing, how you were patient and loving for the 1,000th time, even though you had a headache." And I, who am used to feeling sorry for myself, when all the while, as the Chippewa poem says, I'm being carried by great wind across the sky, I thought of the invisible work that stitches up this world day and night, the slow, unglamorous work of healing, the way worms in the garden tunnel ceaselessly so this earth can breathe, the way bees ransack this world into being every spring. There are mothers for everything, she says, and the sea is a mother too, and the land, whispering and whispering to us long after we've stopped listening. I stop and let myself lean a moment against the blue shoulder of the air. The work of my heart is the work of this world's heart. There is no other art. For just a moment here, think of those who have mentored you, held you, nurtured you, picked you up, taught you something, the ones whose legacy you carry inside. For just a moment, we'll hold silence together. Amen. The hymn is in the Teal Hymnal, number 1051. It's by Isai Barnwell, We Are.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of
From Arthur Foote, a benediction that Reverend Luke spoke many times at White Bear UU Church. May peace dwell within our hearts and understanding in our minds. May courage steel our will and love of truth forever guide us. Amen.